Good morning, everybody. Today's poem is from the 9th of October 2016, so a day after the one I read out yesterday. I just started skimming over the first few paragraphs and I thought I'd give you some fair warning. I'm beginning to notice, or I've been noticing a pattern in myself for a while now, and that is that at times when I go into waves of depression, I also fall into patterns of what you might call intellectual arrogance, where I feel like everybody around me is a bit of an idiot. um, whilst I generally challenge that perspective in myself, and I don't let it go uncritiqued, yeah, it still exists to some degree, even now. But yeah, anyway, with that caveat in mind, without further ado, let us begin. Today, I'm thinking almost everybody is stupid. Shame there isn't an intelligence shooting Cupid. Words are only tools, but most of you can't use them. Most of you get used by words instead. What? You say. When? You're all completely see-through, and that is my curse. The ability to be so perceptive often makes things much worse. People talk about mental health, but have they given it any thought? Or do they simply rely on what they've been taught? I once heard psychiatrists described as the guardians of what society deems to be normal consciousness, or something similar. Do you think this has much meaning? Is it something with which you're at all familiar? Introvert or extrovert, both are a choice. Sometimes I will choose to be introverted and not really use my voice. I suppose I do this because I just can't be asked to try to explain. Every time I do, the reaction is the same. The more I talk to people, the more I'm sure that when it comes to depth of thinking, the majority of you are poor. Not only poor, but blind. Unable to really see things, yet if I were that way, I likely wouldn't mind. Sometimes I think about getting help in a conventional sense. Sometimes I wonder about being involved in repentance. But it would never work for me, and this is why. This normal consciousness I just referred to, from outside it, I can say hi. Once the mind has been stretched by an idea, it can never return to its original dimensions. This quote, if I'm not mistaken, was one of Einstein's inventions. Picture normal consciousness as a circle in which we're encouraged to stay. But not only are we told to remain inside, there is no outside, they say. Yet once you've been outside, of course you're aware that the small circle everyone knows is certainly not everywhere. So the only option left is to play the game. That or risk being seen as somewhat insane. Fuck it. Today I've had enough of playing, enough of engaging in life, and enough of saying that things are alright when sometimes they're really not. I can really see why I used to smoke pot. It dulled how deeply I was able to perceive. And through that I was able to start to deceive myself. Doing this certainly changed my mental health. Yet I can't honestly say that this was all bad. It stopped everything appearing as such a fad. This world we live in is full of unintelligence, seemingly destined to be continued through the laws of inheritance. Days like today I am filled with intellectual arrogance, with impatience for those around me in this lifelong dance. How could you ever expect to understand me when you can't even understand that you don't understand a tree? People always want the simple answer, but really there's no such thing. There's only an endless supply of words fit for a king. But these words, they don't really explain at all. How could you explain that someone is 10 feet tall, when to explain is to lay flat on a plane? And you thought it was I that was insane. I genuinely think that if a majority of people spent a mere minute in my head, they would either depart this world very quickly or simply wish they were dead. On another note, I know my body is beginning to deteriorate. Days like today, this adds to me being slightly irate. At the same time, a deeper part of me longs for annihilation. Knowing if my identity were to be destroyed, I would feel a sense of elation. So with this in mind, I'm torn between whether to encourage healing or whether to continue to be mean. Because I feel inside that perhaps I need to hit rock bottom. What that involves I do not know, perhaps being truly rotten. Yet if you know my story, this might be somewhat disconcerting. To know I'm still to hit rock bottom despite how much I'm hurting. Yet perhaps the clue is here. If you can keep going lower, perhaps there's nothing to fear. Perhaps there is no bottom at all. Just one never-ending fall. And if you can never hit the bottom, you will never be able to climb. If you're always falling, perhaps this is a sign. To relax into the fall and try to enjoy it. To give in to faith and have less faith in your wit. Because it isn't your mind that brings you peace. The peace really comes when the chattering begins to cease. So stop fighting the fall. No wonder you feel like you're getting nowhere. You're fighting a losing battle, pushing against mere air. Okay. So, as I said, and as I even touched on in the poem, there was obviously a degree of intellectual arrogance contained in what I was feeling at the time. And I guess a lot of my challenges around this time in 2016, they were sort of, how do I put this? They were sort of a split between my spiritual journey, my experience with meditation, mindfulness, self-inquiry, so, looking into the nature of self, consciousness, identity, etc., free will. Yeah, so it was kind of a split between my spiritual experience and journey and my intellect. So I was having a hard time reconciling the two, and actually that was, these were the earlier stages of a journey, which is still to some degree ongoing now, and I've only really been beginning to embody my intellect in a more healthy manner over the last couple of years. But